Senior Fellow of the Atlantic Council and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO Policy, Ian Brzezinski. Ian, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be here, Mika.
Look, in terms of what we can deduce so far, whether or not it was the Russians themselves or their missile provided to separatists, what are we looking at in terms of options for the world community and particularly the U.S. now?
Well, Mika, I think this is clearly a game changer. I was struck by the report that U.S. intelligence is now reporting that this was either fired by the separatists or by Russia. This should, as Richard pointed out, mobilize the Europeans to take a more firm stance against Russia's invasion in Ukraine, standing more closely with the United States. It should also bolster the U.S. government to take an even more firmer stance in this crisis. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks, but I think this certainly increases the pressure on allied governments, that's European and North America, to increase economic sanctions on Russia, and second, to provide perhaps more even military assistance to Ukraine to help bring this conflict to an end. This conflict has demonstrated clearly now that war can have consequences well beyond those that are immediately involved, and this should be resonating deeply in the halls of Europe.
So, Richard, I see you nodding. At this point also, what do you make, and you can take it to Ian, but Vladimir Putin's response defensive and almost adding fuel to the fire of what is a tremendously horrific crisis at this point?
Well, Vladimir Putin is many things, but stupid is not among them. And he has got to be worried that essentially he's empowered a group of people over whom he does not have control. He is influenced, but not control. And whether they did this accidentally or purposefully, once you empower a group of separatists or a militia of any sort, they can then take actions. He is now seeing how Russian national interests are severely compromised by what these characters did. So again, I mean, my question for Ian is essentially, what does he now think essentially Putin might do? Does he think it's in Putin's DNA essentially now to find a way to de-escalate, or does Putin only know, if you will, how to push, push, push? What is your sense of it?
That's what I see. Ian?
I think Putin's initial reaction is going to be to push, push, push. If you look at the kind of the steady escalation of Western sanctions on Ukraine, it's been responded by Putin by taking more action to support the separatists. I mean, we've steadily increased economic sanctions on Russia, and his response has been to provide more and more sophisticated weaponry to the separatists and to actually more recently build up again the Russian military presence on the Ukrainian border.
You know, it's absolutely stunning when you look at the missile, the weapon that was used here. I don't know if we still have Jim McLeshevsky at the Pentagon, but this is the ability and precision to which this was able to. The plane was at 33,000 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's nothing for this.
But that's what this missile is designed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's designed to shoot planes out of the sky at 33,000 feet.
And civilian airlines are sitting ducks. They're not taking evasive measures. There's nothing there to confuse the missile system. They're not meant to be. Civilian airliners are not built to defend themselves.
Look,
right.
not
and
that,
they move slower.
Not that it's going to change life much, but the interesting question is whether they intended to shoot a civilian airplane out of the sky, or whether they thought this was yet another Ukrainian plane, of which they've shot down several in the last few days, that happen to be wandering around in that airspace.
Jim McLeshevsky, what are you hearing?
Well, that's exactly right. You know, these weapon systems are somewhat sophisticated, but not so uniquely sophisticated that they can, once their radar locks in, they're not going to differentiate between a civilian plane or a military plane. And I can tell you, some of the U.S. officials I've been talking to yesterday, even though they were certain that this was a Russian weapon at the very least, how the U.S. reacts, they sounded somewhat frustrated by their inability to really take any direct, swift, punitive action against Russia. They're talking about, for the time being anyway, perhaps from the U.S., additional sanctions and maybe a diplomatic démarche. But as many of your guests here today have said, they believe here that the Europeans do have to weigh in and finally unite against this Russian influence, military influence on Ukraine.
Joe.
And Richard Haas, I thought it was fascinating, Ian's response, and just talking about how Putin responded to sanctions, how he responded as the crisis deepened, that he'd actually get more aggressive. It goes back to what you've talked about for some time. Vladimir Putin is the embodiment of all post-Soviet resentments that Russians have, and that's where he draws his power from. And it's one thing when Crimea, they feel like Crimea has been taken away from them. It's quite another when 200 civilians are blown out of the sky and killed. I think it's a bit more complicated for Mr. Putin and his government that is built on a foundation of resentments.
You're exactly right, because at the end of the day, the single most important thing to Putin, shockingly enough, is Putin and Putinism. So I think he'll be tough at first. He'll be his normal pushy self. But then, if it's clear that this time it doesn't work, and the Europeans finally do get serious about joining the United States.
Are they going to get serious, Richard?
Look, I think it'll be hard for them to simply continue business as usual, even for the French. The Dutch in particular could take the lead here and press some of their European colleagues. But if that were to happen, Joe, then I think Putin could decide that essentially the costs suddenly outweigh the benefits, and he has to tactically pull back. At the end of the day, he's used Ukraine to bolster his own position. If things in Ukraine get to the point where they threaten his own position, why wouldn't he push back? Why wouldn't he basically change course here?
Yeah, we're hearing already from world leaders on this. Germany's Merkel, England's Cameron, that the perpetrators must be held responsible.
Now the person I would watch here is Chancellor Merkel. Exactly. More than anyone else, she is now the real leader of Europe. It's not Hollande in France, it's not Cameron in Britain, it is Chancellor Merkel. And if she takes a muscular position, that more than anything else will send a signal to Vladimir Putin.
This would be the time to do that. Jim Miklashevsky and Michael Leiter, thank you very much. Ian Brzezinski, stay with us if you can. Still ahead, with 298 victims on Flight 17, we take a closer look at those individuals while authorities continue to determine who is behind yesterday's attack. We go live to Amsterdam, where the plane originated, also live to Kiev, Ukraine. Plus, we're following the breaking news out of Gaza, where Israel's ground assault is well underway to root out the terror threat of Hamas. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.